Lies, darn lies, and sleeping bag temperature ratings. Howdy y'all, this is Mark from Camping Forge, and today I want to talk about how do we choose sleeping bags. My mom grew up in the 1950s and they lived in rural western Ohio, and they went camping quite a bit growing up. But my mom didn't use sleeping bags back then. They just used blankets. And technically you could still use a blanket today, but the reason why we like to use sleeping bags is that they've got a material over them that helps prevent water from getting into us or seeping through, help to keep us a little drier. So for example, if you're unpacking in a rainstorm, the water, that barrier will make it harder to get wet. It also will make it easier to clean. But let's talk about how a sleeping bag actually keeps you warm. So the principle of a sleeping bag to keeping you warm is the idea is that your body is already generating heat. And what we want to do is keep that heat close to our body. That's the entire purpose of sleeping bag insulation. And what you'll find is there's two types of insulation. One is down, which is a natural fiber. It's basically the small feathers off ducks and geese that are very close to their body. It's basically the best insulator humans know about, right? That we've ever discovered. The downside to down is that it can be expensive, and then if it gets wet, it basically loses its entire insulation properties, which I always find a little funny considering, you know, the feathers are on duck and geese and they live in the water, but that's the idea about the other feathers around the down feathers on the birds, is it keeps those feathers from getting wet. So for most of us who are car campers, we're most likely going to be getting a synthetic type of sleeping fill in our sleeping bag. It still does a very good job of keeping us warm, but if it's cheaper, but also if it gets wet, it will still hold a lot of its insulation properties. Now the next thing it gets to, how I started the video, which is the temperature ratings. Now, when you look, before we get into temperature ratings, let's think about the shape of our sleeping bag, because that plays a part in our temperature ratings. So when you look at sleeping bags, you'll see there's two basically broad types of sleeping bags. You'll have your mummy bags and you'll have your rectangle bags. The mummy bag has a hood around it designed to fit around your head, and your arms and legs fit, of course, inside the rest of the bag. These are the warmest sleeping bags because there's basically no opening for air for your body heat to escape. The downside of a mummy sleeping bag is that it's very constricting. If you're going to roll over, or if you're a side sleeper or a stomach sleeper, you are going to roll your entire body in a mummy bag. You'll also probably feel a bit claustrophobic, so I don't really care for mummy sleeping bags myself. Instead, I go with a rectangle bag, which is not quite as warm as a mummy sleeping bag, but you will have a lot more freedom of movement. And frankly, because I camp in Texas, I would rather have that rectangle bag because it gives you more control over like how much coverage you have in your body when you're sleeping and you need to, you get hot or you get cold. All right, now back to our sleeping bag temperature ratings. So when you look at your sleeping bags, you'll see that they have a temperature rating on them. These temperature ratings come from a third-party laboratory where they're adjusting and saying this is the temperature where the sleeping bag, as part of a sleeping system, this is important, a sleeping system, is designed to keep you comfortable, or actually just the coldest it's designed to even allow you to survive. So for example, and so what I think most people don't understand about the temperature ratings is that it is intended for a sleeping system, and that sleeping system consists of three parts. Part one, of course, is our sleeping bag. Part two is the clothes we wear, and third is our sleeping pad. So I got my sleeping pad here. So the idea is, so basically when people think like, well, what should I wear in my sleeping bag? Well, when they do the temperature ratings, they're thinking you're going to be sleeping in your base layer. So a synthetic layer designed to, it's effectively like athletic, leisure wear, kind of what that Under Armour kind of stuff, where it'll keep you warm, but it's designed to let you, if you start sweating, it'll evaporate. So you don't want it to be cotton. You're going to want the water, you want to want the, if you sweat, it'll want to evaporate to prevent, it'll keep you warmer. Also, because again, you can actually potentially run the risk of getting hypothermia, even in your sleeping bag, if you start sweating and the sweat can't evaporate from you. The second thing is, you want to do is look, is really the sleeping pad. I remember reading some scientific journals, and what they determined is the second most important element in terms of keeping you warm in your sleeping system is not what you're wearing, but it's your sleeping pad. And the reason why we need our sleeping pad to go with our sleeping bag is that when we're in our sleeping bag and we're laying down, the air pockets is what this is. The way your sleeping bag works is it uses air pockets to trap the heat next to your body. But when we sleep in our sleeping bag, our body crushes those air pockets beneath us, and so it can't keep you as warm. And what happens then is the ground we're sleeping on, it's going to be cooler than our body, and so physics dictates is that it's going to try and suck that warm air or heat our body generates and put it in the ground to get reach to equilibrium, and that's why you feel colder. So having a sleeping pad, or perhaps even an air mattress, will allow you to act as a layer of insulation to prevent your body, heat from leaving your body and going into the ground. It's also going to allow you to have a level of comfort because you'll have a nice little pad here and not sleeping just directly on the ground. When they first started doing sleeping pads, I remember like in the 1980s, sleeping pads first came out. They were effectively like yoga mats. Besides being really bulky, they don't, like, if you're a side sleeper, most people think that's basically those kind of foam sleeping pads only work really well if you're a back sleeper. And if you're a side sleeper like me, you end up crushing it again, and it's just not that comfortable and it's not that warm. Nowadays, we got really high quality, really affordable, inflatable sleeping pads. That's what I have here. And I mean, this one I love a lot. It's really easy to blow up just without needing any kind of like air pump or anything. Just self-inflate with, good old lung power. And it's really comfortable. And also, I'm amazed how long this thing will last with it inflated. Of course, I mean, clearly there's no leaks in it, but I mean, I've had it in my backyard just so I could set up to do some filming here. And it held all its air for at least a week. So I'm really happy with this one, and we'll put a link to it in the description. I should also point that if any links we have in our video, we get an affiliate commission if you do buy something. But finally here with our sleeping bags, with the temperature ratings, you may find yourself like me having a couple different sleeping bags in your possession because, for example, what I'm holding here is my summer sleeping bag because it's a lot thinner. It's designed, look, but this is like only going to go down to say like 60 degrees. And at night we may only drop down to the 80s. Thus, we want to make sure, we don't have to keep our big winter sleeping bag. So it'll keep us warmer. It'll keep us warm enough, but also make it easy. It won't be like basically overheat us in the middle of summer. So with that, if you picked up at least one tip from this video, I would love for you to hit the subscribe button. I would love to know before we go, what is your favorite season to go camping? And finally, if you want more camping tips, please head on over to our website at campingforge.com.